Okay, good evening, everybody. It's we haven't learned Wednesday night for about a month, over a month. So welcome back, everybody. Where we left off before we were learning the laws of Tishrei and Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, we're in the middle of the laws of brachas. Brachas before food, after food. So we're up to the siman in Kitzur Shechonah, which we're using as a base to talking about the chapter is called the rules of the Bracha Rishena. Bracha Rishena means the first bracha that you do before eating. So the Gemara asks basically a contradiction between two psukim. One pasuk says, "Lashem haaretz umlaya." Hashem owns the earth and everything in it, which means the earth belongs to Hashem. Another pasuk we say in Hallel. By the way, this pasuk we say in Yom Rishon b'Shabbos in the Yom Lashem haaretz umlaya. Then you have in Hallel we say a pasuk Shemayim Shemayim Lashem va'aretz nasan lebnei adam. The heavens were given to Hashem, and the earth was given to people. So the question is, who does the earth belong to? One pasuk says it belongs to Hashem, one pasuk says it belongs to people. So the Gemara asks this question, and the Gemara answers, it depends, before the bracha or after the bracha. In other words, before you make a bracha, let's say on the food, it belongs to Hashem. After you make a bracha, Hashem gave you permission to eat it. So in other words, as kids, in other places it says, if you eat food without a bracha, you're actually stealing from Hashem. It's Hashem's food. If you make a bracha, then Hashem gives it to you. So then you're allowed to eat it and enjoy it. But in Kitzur Shechonah, he also quotes what the Gemara says, there's a concept called moyel behegdish. If somebody, God forbid, misuses objects that belong to the Beis Hamikdash. So sometimes you have to pay a fifth, you have to bring an extra carbon. There's a lot of issues involved. So just like when it comes to things belonging to the Beis Hamikdash, in order to use them for personal usage, you have to redeem them. So the same thing, what's the redemption to be able to use it? That is making a bracha. So it says there's no amount of food to make an original bracha on. Now, the after bracha we'll learn you need to eat a kazayas or drink a revius, X amount of liquid or X amount of food. But to make a bracha, you make a bracha on any minimal, minute amount, you have to make a bracha. Now, halachically, the Chachamim, which was in the time of Anshe Knesset Hagadol, the men of the Great Assembly, in the time of the building of the second Beis Hamikdash, so basically it was Ezra, Nehemiah, or as the commentators say in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Anshe Knesset Hagadol, there was a men of Great Assembly. They had 120 scholars in it. Ezra, Nehemiah, Mordechai, Daniel, a lot of people in that big Bais Din of 120. They instituted the text of davening. They instituted the text of brachas. They instituted a lot of the rabbinic mitzvahs that we have today were initiated by the Anshe Knesset Hagadol. Okay? So when they made brachas, they made general brachas, and then they made also detailed brachas. So for instance, you have a bracha called Shahakol Nia B'Dvarim. Everything came about through Hashem's words. Now, technically, that is a general bracha that covers every food, every type of food. Whether it's bread, cake, wine, fruit, vegetables, shahakol things, it doesn't matter. Everything is b'diavad covered with that bracha. But halacha says you can't just make a shahakol on everything. The Chachamim gave us individual brachas to be more particular when we're thanking Hashem. So, for instance, on bread, they instituted the bracha meitzi lachem and on cake, they instituted berei minei mezenos. On fruit, they instituted berei priyaitz. On vegetables, things that grow from the ground, berei priya adam. And then for everything else, they make shahakol, like meat, things that don't grow. So you make a shahakol niyabidvar. Now, when it comes to brachas, ideally a person should make the proper bracha for that particular food. Now, if somebody, let's say, took a carrot, a vegetable, lettuce, Now lettuce, the bracha, we know, grows in the ground. So you have to make a berei pri ha'adama. What happens if somebody made on a piece of lettuce berei pri ha'etz, which means the fruit of the tree? Obviously, you did not fulfill your obligation because it's not a true statement. Lettuce does not come from a tree. Watermelon does not come from a tree. Neither do anything else we make ha'adama. Potatoes don't come from a tree. So if somebody would make a berei pri ha'etz, which means tree, and vegetables, then you would not be fulfilling your obligation, and you made a bracha in vain. You have to say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'Elvad, and you have to make a new bracha. But what happens if somebody on an apple, pear, they made a berei pri ha'adama? Now that's a true statement because a tree also comes from the ground. So therefore, if somebody on an apple made the bracha berei pri ha'adama, they don't have to make another bracha because they made a bracha. And if they would be making another bracha, they would be saying a bracha in vain. So therefore, when you eat the apple and you said by mistake berei pri ha'adama, you fulfilled your obligation. Is that what you're supposed to be doing? No. What happens if somebody made a shahakol? So if somebody made a shahakol on anything, i.e., by mistake somebody made a shahakol on bread, or cake, or fruit, or vegetables, or anything else, it's a true statement. Shahakol nihya bidvar. Everything came about through Hashem's word. So it's not the proper bracha, but it's not an incorrect bracha. It's not a wrong bracha. So therefore, if somebody by mistake made adama on an apple, they fulfill their obligation. But what happens if they ate a vegetable and they made berei pri ha'adama, and now they're going to be eating an apple? So now you have to make ha'etz on the apple. You made ha'adama on the vegetable. Yeah, but that's on the vegetable. Even though you had in mind maybe for the apple also, it's still not enough because you're not going to be saying a bracha in vain. You made ha'adama on the vegetable. Now you have to say the proper bracha berei pri ha'etz on the apple. So the bottom line is, l'chatchila, to begin with, you have to learn the brachas to know what bracha you make. What's the proper bracha to make on everything? Not only that, the din is, when a person starts making a bracha, and they start saying Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu, they have to know what the end of the bracha is going to be. They have to know what they're going to be saying at the end. You can't go Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. You know, what should I say here? Halachically, you're not allowed to do that. You have to know before you start making the bracha. You have to know what the bracha is going to be. Is it a eitz, shahakol, adama, mezainis, ameitzi? You have to know, and then you start making the bracha. Now that's we'll learn more dinim about, or I'll tell you another example. What happens if there's an argument in halacha, what the bracha is? I'll give you an example. On rice, there's an argument in halacha. Is it mezainis? Is it shahakol? Sometimes it could be adama. So many people, by the way, most people go like the Mishnah Berurah, and other parts can say rice is mezainis. You see in a lot of brachas books, the bracha on rice they'll tell you is mezainis. The Alter Rebbe writes in Siddur, no, that because there's a question what the bracha is, so what do? We make shahakol niyah because it covers it. So I'm not making it because I didn't learn the bracha. I'm making it because there's an argument in halacha what the bracha should be. So if I make a shahakol, for sure I'm covered according to all opinions. That's issue number one. Next is when you make a bracha on food or drink, you're supposed to hold it in your right hand before you make the bracha. While you're making the bracha, you're supposed to hold it in your right hand. So you're taking a fruit, you should hold the fruit in your right hand. You're taking a drink, you should hold the cup in your right hand. If you're a left-handed person, you hold it in the left hand because that is your right hand. Why do we hold it in the right hand? Because the right is more important than the left. And out of respect to the bracha, you're making a bracha, shahakol whatever it is, you're holding the food in the right hand. Now, if you didn't, and the food was right in front of you, it's okay. But if the food wasn't in front of you, then it's no good. If somebody, let's say, you're going to make eat an apple, and they make her eat, and then they open the refrigerator door to take out the apple, it's no good. It wasn't in front of you when you made the bracha. In fact, there's another interesting halacha. If you're by a river, now a river, the water flows. Okay, we'll see details. It's a big question. By a river, when I make shahakol, then the water that I made the bracha is already down the road. So we'll see about that later. But generally speaking, somebody should hold the food in the right hand and know what the end of the bracha is. Again, if you didn't hold it in your right hand, in your hand at all, and it was in front of you, it was good. If it wasn't in front of you, they brought it later. Even though you had it in mind, you have to make another bracha. Now, here's another thing. What happens? I was holding a cup of water, a cup of juice, and I made shakol. And all of a sudden, it fell out of my hand. Cup dropped. So the din is as follows. If there was more juice in front of me, the container of juice was in front of me, and I had in mind I'm going to drink more than one cup of juice, then I could take some orange juice or juice and drink it without a bracha. But if I had a cup of juice and the juice was put back in the fridge already, and now the thing spilled out, or it was in front of me, but I didn't intend to drink more than one cup, and then I have to make another bracha on the new juice that I took. Because it's logical, it wasn't in front of me when I made the bracha. The one that was in front of me that I intended to drink, it's non-existent anymore. It fell down, finished. So then, now, what happens? I made a bracha on an apple, and it fell on the floor, but it's still edible. So then I just pick it up and eat it. I don't have to make another bracha. But if it became disgusting, it fell into garbage full of garbage that you can't eat it, or it's not an apple, it's another food that gets mixed in the garbage, you can't take it out and eat it. So then, if you're going to be eating more, you're going to have to make another bracha, because the first bracha is not covering it. Okay, next. When a person makes a bracha, they should make sure to eat it right away. You can't make a bracha and wait a minute and eat the fruit or the cake or whatever it may be. You have to eat it what's called teich kedei dibur. As within the amount of time it takes to say 3 words, Shalom Aleichem Rebbe. Okay? So bottom line of this halacha is, you eat something, you make a bracha, you have to put it in your mouth right away. Now, if you're making a bracha and you're cutting it, okay, then you're still involved in the making of it, so to speak. So then you cut it and you take a piece right away. That's why the din is, on Shabbos, one of the reasons for the din, when somebody is making lechem mishnah, the 2 halachos for everybody at the table, and he makes a mitzvah and he cuts a piece, so he has to take a bite right away. Because otherwise he's wasting time between his bracha and the eating, which is not allowed. So he has to take a bite right away. Now, what happens if he didn't talk, but he was silent? Okay? He was silent. So then he doesn't have to remake the new bracha. But you should make sure to make it right away. Now, here's a din that a lot of people are unaware of. When you take a bite of food, so you're eating an apple, okay? They say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam bared pri ha'etz, and I take a bite in the apple. I am not allowed to talk until I finish the first swallow. I'm not allowed to talk before I swallow the first bite. A lot of people don't make a bracha, and they're talking already. According to certain opinions, you might have to make a new bracha or not. We don't because it's a suffix. But according to opinions, there are many opinions that you would have to make a new bracha. Because the whole purpose of the making a bracha is the swallowing of it. The swallowing of it. So now you're talking between the bracha and the eating. The eating is not the chewing. Okay? It's you swallow the food, that's what you're making the bracha on. So if somebody makes a bracha, bites into the apple, or takes a piece of cake, or whatever it may be, and talks before they swallow the first bite, it's very possible they would have to make a new bracha. Again, we don't because it's a machlekes, so we say doubtful brachas you don't do. But it would be a big problem, halacha. To the extent, we don't pass like this. But there's an opinion that says, what happens if I put a sucking candy in my mouth? Can I make shahako? Then I put the sucking candy in my mouth. Am I not allowed to talk until I finish the candy? Because the candy is the first bite. This is questionable in halacha. Bottom line is, once you suck it a little bit and you get the initial flavor, you swallow the initial flavor of the candy, that's called good by candy. But I'm just saying how far it goes to halacha. You make a bracha, you take a bite, you're not allowed to talk until you swallow the initial bite. Okay? Now, what happens if somebody made a bracha and they didn't talk? Okay? So then it's best to eat right away, but you don't have to make a new bracha. Like we said, you're cutting the bread, whatever. You don't have to make a new bracha, but again, it's best to make right away. Okay, or let's say, give you another example. If you're waiting between the bracha and the food, because it's part of the eating, he gives an example. You're cutting a big fruit, okay? And you want to make a bracha on a complete fruit, because it's better to make a bracha on a complete one. So now you want to make a bracha on a complete one. Now you're going to cut it. So it's going to take a little time to cut it. That doesn't matter. Okay? So now there's another interesting thing he brings down here. What happened years ago, they didn't have pesticides. We don't have pesticides anymore either. But let's say years ago, people would find, let's say, worms in an apple or pear or whatever. There would be worms. So it says, what happens if somebody had one fruit, okay, and they don't know if it has a worm in it or not. So then, even though it's preferred to make a bracha on a complete thing, on a whole fruit, in this case, you can cut the fruit before you eat it, before you make the bracha. Why? Because you want to make sure it's edible, that there's no worms in it, that they'll not be able to eat it. Okay, now, what happens if somebody tastes food, not to swallow it? Okay. In other words, you're cooking soup, okay, and you want to see if the soup needs salt, whatever. So you taste a little bit of the soup and you spit it out. Because if you swallow it, then you have to make a bracha. Because we learned before, any amount you have to make a bracha on. But what happens? You want to taste it just in your mouth. You're not swallowing it. You want to taste it in your mouth. If it needs salt or not, then what you need to do, you don't have to make a bracha. Up to 3 ounces. But if you swallow, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to have to make a bracha. Next thing is as follows. If somebody is eating or drinking medicine, taking not a pill you swallow has no taste. So they did like this, you're taking cough medicine, okay, that's kosher. Taking cough medicine, so they did, do you make a bracha on that or not? So halacha says like this, if it tastes good, you make a bracha. If it tastes bitter, You don't like the taste, you don't make a bracha. What happens if it's not good and not bad? So the practical halacha is to make a bracha. But if it tastes bitter, it doesn't taste good, you don't make a bracha on it. Medicine that tastes good, you make a bracha and you're benefiting, you're enjoying it. It's good. Now, what happens if somebody is drinking water? Mentioned this din. It's a very practical din. You're taking medicine with water. So now the question is, do you make a bracha on that water? The only time, and this only applies to water, nothing else. The only time you make a bracha on water is when you're thirsty. If you're not thirsty, but you're drinking water, whether it's you just want to drink water or you're taking a pill, the only time you make a bracha on water halachically is when you're thirsty. Chassidim, they didn't want to drink, so they would say they're thirsty. They would make that they're thirsty. They're drinking because they're thirsty. But halachically, if you're taking a pill and you're taking it with juice, you have to make a bracha. You're taking it with tea, you have to make a bracha. But if you're taking it with water, halachically, water is not considered a food or a drink until unless if you're thirsty. That's the uniqueness about water. Water is not called a food. So again, if somebody's taking medication, again, if it's liquid or chewables, then you have to make a bracha on it. And therefore, by the way, while we're on this topic, if you're taking liquid medicine or chewable medications, then they have to be kosher. Because it's a food, you're making a bracha on it. If it's a pill that you swallow, so because you're not tasting the pill, then in halacha, it doesn't have to be kosher. Halachically, it doesn't have to be kosher. In Shulchan Aruch, it says, Bal nefesh should be machmir. If you can get kosher, why do you need to get not kosher? But a lot of times, to give an example, I know we're going off from this medication from food, but a lot of times people are prescribed, let's say, iron pills. And the kosher iron pills, may they live and be well, are not as effective, the doctor tells you, as this particular brand of iron pills that you need to take. So even if it's not life endangering you can do whatever you want. But even if it's not life endangering, the din is if you have to take, if you want to take it, you could take it. If it's better medicinally, then you could take it. Vitamins that you're just popping pills, you don't need it. It's more of a reason to say that it has to be kosher. Even though it's not really a food, but still you're benefiting from it. You're not tasting it. So then there's more reason. So if the doctor prescribes it, then then it doesn't have to be kosher, halachically. If you don't need to take it, I mean, it's not terrible because you're not eating it, but then it's more of a reason that it should be kosher pills. But again, anytime you have liquid or chewable that have a good taste, you have to make a bracha. Now, there are times, and then you need to ask a shaila. Sometimes the doctor prescribes a medication, let's say for kids, and because kids can't swallow pills, or many adults can't swallow pills, and they get a liquid medication. And it's not life endangering again, but it's really, really important for them to take it, but it's not kosher. You have to ask a shaila. There are times a Rav would permit you to take it, even though it's not kosher, and even though you're eating it basically, but because it's medicinal. But that has to be asked in that particular case to a Rav. Again, if somebody is prescribed, somebody's asking the question, if somebody is prescribed a capsule, okay, you have to empty out the contents of the medication. Again, there are people that do that, but in halacha, even though the capsule is gelatin, now they have veggie caps, by the way, but even if it's gelatin, again, you're not eating it, you're swallowing it. So it doesn't have a din of food. I'll take it even a step further. I know we're going off topic, but for instance, use toothpaste and mouthwash. Okay, toothpaste and mouthwash. Does toothpaste have to be kosher? I mean, a lot of the big brands, by the way, are kosher. Or does mouthwash have to be kosher? Now, the question is, I'm not swallowing it. You don't swallow mouthwash. You don't swallow toothpaste. It's not meant to swallow. So there's an argument in halacha that it has to be kosher. Not the majority opinions say, no, it doesn't have to be kosher. Why? Because you're not swallowing it. You're not eating it. Eating is when you swallow it. Rinsing your mouth is not called eating. Even not saying you're allowed to on a fast day, but in a fast day, you're not supposed to rinse your mouth. But what happens if somebody rinses their mouth on a fast day? They're still called fasting. They didn't eat. So again, many opinions hold that toothpaste and mouthwash doesn't have to be kosher because again, you're not swallowing it when you're not eating it. Okay, and again, the same thing with capsules. Obviously, if you can get kosher medication that's just as potent as the non-kosher gelatin, why do you have to take it? Okay, next is like this. Okay, if somebody okay, what happens if by mistake somebody bit into, I'm using an apple, it's a practical case. Somebody bit into an apple and they realized they didn't make a bracha. They didn't make a bracha. And they bit into it. It applies to any food. So the then is, if you spit it out, it won't be disgusting. No, you didn't chew it yet. You just bit into it. You could just take it out of your mouth, make a bracha and put it back in. That's what you have to do. You're not allowed to make a bracha with food in your mouth. And this is another din that many people are not careful about. You're not allowed to make a bracha with something in your mouth. Why? There's a pasuk says, Yimale pi tehila sacha. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, my mouth will be full of your praises. Which means the Gemara learns out, the Gemara learns, Shulchan says, when you make a bracha, you're praising Hashem, your mouth should be full of the bracha, nothing else in the mouth. So let's say you're eating two foods. Okay, eating a piece of cake with a grape. So all you do, you make a mezanis first. You take a mezanis, and while you're in the middle of chewing the cake, you didn't swallow it yet, you start making a very pure eitz on the grape. You're not allowed to do that. But the other, you don't have to make a new bracha. But you have to make sure you don't make a bracha. In other words, two practical dinim that we're learning today that many people are not careful on. When you make a bracha, you bite into the food, you're not allowed to talk until you swallow it. Secondly, you're not allowed to make a bracha with food or drink in your mouth. You're not allowed to do it. Why? Because it says, Yimali pito l'sach. Now, what happens if it's a food that if you spit it out, it's disgusting and you have no more other food? Like this, okay, you spit it out, take something else and make a bracha. You have this food and you need it and you don't have anything else to eat, to make the bracha on. So then you move it to one side of your mouth and you make a bracha. Because you're not allowed to eat without a bracha. The pasuk only says you really should, have your mouth full of brachas, but it's not what's called the ikub, but the other. So what you do then is move it to one side of your mouth, or liquid that you sometimes can't move it to the house, move to one side of the mouth. So then, what happens if it's liquid? In Kitzur says like this: what happens if it's liquid? You're dying for the liquid. You ate it without a bracha, and you can't spill it out, and you can't move it to the side of the mouth. Okay. So then, what you should do, you swallow it, and then you make a bracha. Because the fact that you thought about making the bracha while it was still in your mouth, sometimes b'diavad thinking the bracha would be valid. So the fact that you thought about it when it was in your mouth, that I have to make a bracha, therefore, even though you can't spit it out, you have nothing else, and you can't move it to one side of the mouth, and therefore you'll swallow it, and then you'll make a bracha. Okay, that's it for halacha. Now we're going to go to Tanya.